Okay, and before we get to the last item, I just want to note for the record that items number 29, 30, and 31 are being read into the record and will be presented at a future public meeting, most likely next Tuesday. And the last item is item number 27, application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 14-8148, block 1212, lot 18, 141 West 81st Street in the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District, a Romanesque revival-style row house with Queen Anne-style elements designed by Rossiter and Wright and built in 1886 to 87. This is an application to construct rooftop and rear yard additions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yes, if you could put the cap on for now. John Graham of Landmark staff. The application before you is for work at a row house on the north side of West 81st Street between Columbus and Amsterdam Avenue. The photos here show the existing condition of the building, historic tax photo, and the photo at the time of designation. The applicants are proposing work in two areas. The proposed rooftop addition is shown here. This is the existing condition. The proposed rooftop addition is shown here. It would be set back behind the parapet and the mansard roof. The applicants constructed a mock-up and it was not visible from the street. The proposed rooftop addition would be aligned with the rear facade of the main portion of the building. The applicants are also proposing, and this is the existing and proposed front elevations, and there is the rooftop addition. The applicants are also proposing rear yard alterations. This board shows the existing condition, and there's an aerial and a montage showing the bulk of the rear yard and rooftop additions. There is an existing extension on the rear of this building. The new addition would fill in this gap. It would not extend past the northernmost wall of the existing rear yard extension, but would fill in the gap. It would go up basement and 3 floors. On the 4th floor, the proposed new facade would align with the existing masonry facade shown over here, but all of the existing masonry would be removed and the glass facade used for the basement and lower 3 floors would be extended, and then this is the rear rooftop addition. So that's the proposed. Now you have 2 handouts, Commissioners. This is the handout that corresponds to what I just showed you. There is another handout that is going to be for the PowerPoint presentation, and now we're going to go into the PowerPoint presentation. And the project architect is here, and this is a sample of the system they would use for the glass, walls, and to the brick at the demising wall.
Thank you very much, John. Hi, my name is Florian Eidenberg. I'm here to speak on behalf of the architectural team. I'm the design architect for the project. With me is also Jim Yu, my partner from the firm, and Andre Herrero, who's the architect on the project. Also with us is Nabil Isaac, the architect of record, and David Liston from the law firm of Lewis Fine. Before I start, I'd like to say that the Kim family, we were very excited when they approached us to work with them on transforming the house they've lived in for a year into a bright and cheerful family home. They moved here from the Upper East Side. They are excited in moving to this historic district. They asked us to be respectful of the existing home, so we're not doing anything to the existing facade. There's nothing you can see from the street. They also asked us to be respectful to the donut. They enjoy the green space. They asked us to see how can we bring the green space, actually the experience of the green, further into the home. And they asked us to come up with a design that contributes to the rich texture and variety of typologies within this block. To help you orient, so here we have the street. This is the existing massing, as John described. There is an extension already of 3 floors in the basement in the back. And here's the donut. Note the narrowness of the house, of the home. It's 19 feet, so this poses a challenge to bring in light while providing privacy. What we're asking for is 2 points, a rear addition and a rooftop addition. The rear, though, it's fair to say, is just an infill of the existing volume. And this shows you the rooftop addition, which is a 12-foot addition. And this is the way it would situate itself within the neighboring homes. First, I will show the conditions on the roof. So this shows the existing section. Note already the existing volume pushing out and an exterior stair going to the roof. And what we're proposing to do is fill in that void and move that stair inward and build a volume to incorporate that. Note it is not visible from the street. So these show the existing conditions on the roof. This is looking west. You see the neighbor's terrace, and this is looking east. As John mentioned, we made a mock-up. This showing pictures of the mock-up. This is the highest point in the street, looking at the property, which is here on the day. This we took together with John, and it confirms that the condition is not visible from the street. As for the backyard, we did a similar thing. We took a picture at the top of the existing extension and made a panorama shot into the rear yard of the donut. And note that you cannot see any public throughway here. You do see some existing extensions coming into the donut actually from the other side, and the police station here that I will speak about briefly in a bit. So we respect the existing line of the donut. This would be the new massing as we fill in this area over here. And then I'd like to speak about the current character of that rear facade. It doesn't have any significant architectural features. There's no cornices, no purple brickwork. I know that the Commission values this facade, but I think in this case it's interesting to see the difference between the prominence of this volume versus the top facade there, which is the back of the highest level, which you see here. This is the current state of that top floor, and so we are asking to replace this with new construction. So to speak about the design for this rear facade, the rear elevation, I'd like to zoom out a little bit and look at the block as a whole. This shows the row of townhouses with, at the end flanked here, a tall apartment building, and not much further also a 7-story post-war apartment building. And if you look at the block as a whole, you see that this is the row of townhouses, and over time extensions have happened within the green space. But there's also a variety of different typologies within the block. So there's a Ukrainian Orthodox church there. These are taller apartment buildings. This is a post-war apartment. And here's a police station, the 20th precinct. So it's actually a great variety of styles and textures. And you see that the donut is even used for parking by the police. So there is certainly, it's not the most pure example of the donut. Here you see the house. Here you see this post-war apartment building on 155 West. This is the police station on the other side of the block. And what is interesting, there's two previously approved extensions very similar to our application, which are actually visible from the street. So here we're looking over the parking lot of the police station to the back to these two properties. And you see what they're trying to do is very similar as what we are tasked to do, is bring in more light into the space. And the massing that we are proposing, the end result will be very similar to this one. So the volume will be very similar. And you see also this desire to bring in light here. If we look now at the condition in the back, and we look at the neighboring properties, this is looking towards the west side. We see a whole variety of materials and scales, and we see also how, because this is the line of the donut, how say decks and extensions are pushing into the donut already, and what sort of a dark situation it actually creates here for the current owner. Looking on the other side to the east, also architectural elements actually pushing into the donut. And so all we are asking for is actually to fill in this area right here up to the existing roof line, make it very open and transparent, and then unify the facade in this bright and cheerful design. As spoken before, the materials we're proposing here is a glazed brick, which we have a sample here. I think there's a larger cloud gray brick with a little darker gray grout. It has a window system. It's an IGU system, obviously to preserve energy, with sliding doors. Just to take you through the floors, this is the family dining room, the living room, the master bedroom, and the daughter's bedroom. And so these will have operable sliding doors, and these two as well. There's a little balcony here for the daughter to enjoy. There will be a low heat coat on the glass, so it will not be completely transparent. We want to obviously preserve energy, and it also gives you a slight reflection to actually show the green space reflecting in the glass.
What's the balcony made of?
The balcony itself, so this is a glass handrail on the top, and then there's pavers on the balcony. So that's what you see over here. So the roof, we tried to unify. This is the facade elevation I just spoke about, which we're asking to replace within this application, unifying this back facade.
And the addition is the second level, the addition, or?
This will be the addition here. Yeah, so this is existing currently.
Okay.
We're asking to replace this and unify it. This is because there's actually a double high space behind. And so we're trying to see if we can propose that into a single facade.
I'm sorry, is that that's a double height space?
Well, behind. So what you see here is that the floor is pulled back.
Okay.
So there's actually, at this part, I can go back to the section, maybe we can show that here.
Understood.
This here is a double high family room.
So technically, you could actually set this back if needed? Because it's
Yeah,
only
we
double
lose-
height space. You don't lose square footage, you just
that's
lose.
correct.
Okay.
I'm almost finished. So
Okay.
one thing,
Yeah.
which I'm getting at now. Along in the process, there were concerns, and I'm sure we'll hear something from the
Right.
neighbors, which went through the process. And so what we're showing today has taken some of these considerations into account. So this was a previous design that we presented at the community board. And what we have done is we've lowered the party wall. We used the party wall first also as the guardrail. And what we're proposing to do now is to actually have a glass handrail, so there's more light that comes into this area. We will minimize the structural depth of the roof itself to make sure that that's as low as can be. There will be no mechanical systems on that roof, or it will not be used as a terrace. This is the new roof extension. Also, we've opened up the yard a lot, made it much more porous and sort of open to the neighbors. So those are some of the concerns that we have addressed in this design that we're proposing to you today.
So the piece that in this previous proposal, the original,
Yeah.
the piece that you see right on top, in the second picture.
It's here, but we made it lighter because
You made it lighter, but it's essentially the same bulk?
it is the same bulk, but we minimized a little bit the structure. It's purely like how shallow can we get the structure with the parapet and still have a room up there. And what we do is emphasize stronger this frame here. So actually this line continues in the back in the same face as the neighbor over here.
Just a few minor material questions. The balconette on the
Yes.
third floor is glass. Is it glass railing? It's shown
No,
as a
actually,
grid,
it looks a little bit too. It's a perforated metal.
perforated
yeah.
metal. And the floor of that is both the white stuff,
Yeah, this is a steel extension coming up here.
and that is also steel, the kind of the mullions between the
Yeah.
floors, the express floor slab edge.
Yeah, this is a
Steel.
cap. So there's a steel beam with insulation and then a break form cap that goes on.
Roberta?
Yeah, so on the, so where is the existing back wall, rear wall, where is that?
It's in the same line, so maybe it makes,
Going all the way up, so it goes,
so this shows
Right.
the existing and the infill we're proposing, and which are exactly within the same
so
face.
are you bringing it out, or are you saying it's in the same plane?
It's
You're
in the same
so
plane.
You're doing what? You're tearing it down?
Yeah, we're just trying to unify it
You're
into,
tearing it down?
yeah, we're stripping this portion of the facade, filling this in, and then making it a complete facade.
Now, you know, one of those pictures that you showed, actually, that you were saying is similar, actually showed retaining the top floor of that brownstone and only working on the floors below.
You're speaking
Which is-
about this
Yeah.
this one here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now, did you look at doing anything like that? Because it does have the advantage of retaining something historic of the
Yes.
building that's like the other
The,
buildings. and all
the
of
challenge in our case was that the current condition of that top is this. And so it is not a really
that. Uh-huh.
very unified, I don't think it's the best part of this home. So we were, yeah, I mean, I understand the considerations that exist there. We would have to then restore this in some way, but ultimately what we were trying to do is make it well, unified.
Sorry, do you have an image taken a little further back that shows the relationship of that floor to the,
That's it.
anything further back than that?
So this window is this window.
Right. But,
And so what happens here is on the floors below, the room pushes out a little bit, and then this extension pushes out all the way.
but in terms of the plane of that window on the top,
Yeah.
where I see that it's not planar with the building to the right,
That's correct.
but, and then what happens, because it's hard to tell from this perspective, what happens to the left?
It's the same, which means this handrail, this guardrail turns around and becomes this handrail here. So maybe it does probably make sense to go back all the way to the original zoning. So the window we were discussing is here.
Okay,
There's a
right.
door here, and they're using this as a terrace currently.
Okay, so it's planar with the building adjacent to the left is the point.
This
Right.
space is,
Yeah.
plain
Right.
with that. And then there is this sort of push out here, sort of a semi-bay window
Right.
that pushes this out, and then there is the further extension.
And so if we, where's that, what page is that on?
Second page of or third page of the first book. Here. There it is.
So if you were talking about then, on this diagram that you have only the building adjacent to you that you're coplanar with on the left side,
That's
right?
correct.
But are you there, and so if I look, I don't find coplanarity, if that's a verb, with
Well, actually-
anybody else towards the left.
To be completely fair, this is also in that same plane. It's just that this extension here, which is similar to this bay window, has been pushed up at some point in time, I guess.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Roberta?
So the finish is what, all white, or is that just what is the actual color of material?
Sorry, the brick,
Gray brick.
it's a light gray,
Light brick and gloss.
so this brick is the frame that happens over here.
Yeah.
Then there are the windows themselves, which are these, this is a sliding door system. It does.
It's very heavy.
Which are insulated glass units with the slim lines. So this is an anodized finish on the
Silver, silver color.
Yeah,
Silver color.
exactly. Anodized. And this is the wall, not the floor itself, which is basically a sheetrock or a floor.
And you got your white perforated metal, your white steel brake metal.
light
we have
gray.
slab
Well,
edges.
maybe it's.
And we have shades, of course, and blackout shades,
We can call
it's
that
north
white.
facing walls, so there will not be direct sun.
Right.
But, yeah.
Very light gray, maybe?
Teenager who has to go to bed.
That's back, that's the
Okay.
two-story
Are there any other
rear
questions?
top addition, rear addition.
All right, we'll
Right.
take
I mean, the
testimony. Mark
rooftop
Diller?
addition.
From the community board, yes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Mark Diller. I am a member of Community Board 7 and of its steering and preservations committees, but I think today I'm probably speaking mostly for myself, although my testimony will be to illustrate our resolution to you. So our board approved a resolution that, in effect, approved part of this proposal and disapproved another. The part that we approved after some discussion was the rooftop addition, which, while there was some discussion about its bulk, that we found to be acceptable and appropriate. But we disapproved the rear yard addition. The vote on that was 29 to 2 to 3 to 0, so not unanimous, but fairly wide margins. We found that the design was quite elegant, actually, but just out of place. It didn't belong in the rear yard of an Upper West Side Historic District townhouse donut, which we believe was reasonably intact, although there have been some incursions, and the applicant has noted the most egregious of them being the police department. We're not about to take issue with them. The resolution highlights that there are vast expanses of unmodulated glass, and I'm actually quite pleased that the applicant showed you 117 and 121 on West 81st Street, those two that you saw with the infill, that show the kind of modulation of fenestration. We understand that applicants want to see more light in their space, but we think those are good examples of the ways in which you can achieve that goal and still respect the precedence of what it's like to be in the utilitarian backyard of a townhouse donut. We were concerned about the lack of scale and the lack of detail in relation to the rear yard context, and in particular here, actually this is a great example of it. This slide here shows you how it forecloses that double beveled detail in where the next door building, so I guess it's 143, adjoins 141, will essentially lose that bevel effect, and you'll end up with a window on 143 where they open up the window and reach out and touch the full width extension on the other side. Overall, we were concerned about bulk. Now, some community members invited us to disapprove the whole thing because of the bulk. What we chose to do is to, in effect, approve the rooftop addition and question the rear yard. That was the will of our committee and of the board. And we were quite concerned about the contrasting colors that you see before you. Again, this is a perfect illustration of it, that the materials and colors are inappropriate to the way in which the rear yard is aligned. So for those reasons, we found ourselves to request that you disapprove the rear yard addition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kelly Carroll.
Kelly Carroll, Historic Districts Council. This row of houses is entirely intact, both on the front and rear facades, which is a rare find, and the proposed rear expansion will result in a significant loss of historic fabric and disrupt the rhythm of both facades. This row of 4 houses has an unusual rear facade pattern, including undulating half bays and a uniform fenestration pattern, not typically found on townhouses in this neighborhood, and a feature therefore worth preserving. Collectively, the rear yard and rooftop accretions demand too much from this little house. Thank you.
Thank you. Donald Press.
Just before I start my time, I'd like to hand out 3 exhibits. There should be 9 copies here. I'm Donald Press, and I represent the West 81st Street Block Association. And again, before I start, I'd like to express a welcome and congratulations to our new chair.
Thank you.
It is with regret that we oppose the application on 4 grounds. First of all, this house does not stand alone. It's part of a unique integrated a group of 4 townhouses that are remarkably intact front and rear and designed harmoniously as a whole, front and rear. The first exhibit I passed out, you'll see the insert plan showing way in which the distinguished architects Eric Kensett-Rossiter and Frank S. Wright have created this rhythmic ABBA pattern on the lower floors with some ingenious variation on the upper floors. And that in the rear, they mirror it exactly with an almost Palladian-like massing of the two extensions in the middle with the two supporting wings on either side. This harmonious pattern is still fully intact. Any expansion or modification like stairs that we talked about has occurred only on the basement level where it's obscured by garden fences and foliage, and it goes to the 11 houses on either side. A plot view may seem to show accretions, but above the basement level, this gap tooth effect and design reads fully. Secondly, the rear does have unique features that are worth preserving. I want to hold up this bay design in which the architects ingeniously introduced full bays and half bays, again in a rhythmic pattern, which you can see below in the plan, that again in ABBA fashion echoes the front and forms a rhythmic whole. This Victorian touch provides a charming and unusual scalloped effect for the whole ensemble. The proposed expansion wouldn't just eliminate the bay on this house, it would essentially destroy the rhythm and linkage of the four houses that would cease to make sense anymore. Third, we are concerned about the scale and placement of the rooftop addition. As mentioned, it would go uniquely back to the rear wall of the main house on the same plane as the neighboring houses. And the effect of a sixth floor with no setback or separation from the existing floor would essentially obliterate any historical reading of the congruent roof line of the matching houses. At a minimum, we'd recommend this commission require a setback at the current roof level. We are concerned that the presentation you have just seen never shows a basic rear elevation, making it very difficult for this committee to judge the effect. As you'll see in my third exhibit, there was a full rear elevation rendering just before the presentation to CB7, but the architects have since substituted the image in the middle as a supposedly revised design. We've put them side by side here just so you can see that the only difference really is the angle at which the camera has taken it, allowing essentially the fifth and the sixth floor to almost disappear completely. And any changes are really cosmetic, like the glass reflection on a slightly lighter tone.
I'm sorry, your time is up, sir.
Thank you. Can I just add one sentence, which is that from that full sixth floor, you would see that we agree that essentially the facade seems inappropriate for our rear.
Thank you. John Harris?
Hi, I'm John Harris. I also represent the West 81st Street Block Association. I'd like to provide a few additional points in addition to the new information. First, regarding the integrated design of the four-unit group of townhouses, I'd like to mention a word about the architects Rossiter and Wright. They did some very distinguished work. Other designs include the Washington Club, the Gunn Memorial Library, St. John's Episcopal Church, and many of the campus buildings at Vassar and Hotchkiss. Wright was a founder of the Architectural League of New York and also the author of works such as Symmetry and Symbolism in Architecture and Architectural Perspective. I'd like to note that their work is worthy of our appreciation. Second, we feel the scope of this proposal is too great. As someone said, it's a lot to ask of a little house. The new massing in the rear, in combination with the new massing on the roof, is somewhat unprecedented. Precedents were cited for the extension work at 117 and 121. However, they are the only two houses in the donut that have eliminated their gap tooth higher than the basement. They are at the other end of the block, 10 and 12 houses away. Neither belongs to a matching house or group of houses. Both rear facade designs are sensitive to the neighborhood, and although one already had a large bulkhead and mechanicals, neither applied for an extension on the rooftop as well as the rear. Similarly, there are precedents for a penthouse expansion alone, but all have limited themselves to approximately 1/3 of the roof, with a setback at both front and rear to maintain the contiguous roof line and clearly communicate that the penthouse is an add-on and not historical. There is no other rooftop expansion in the neighborhood to the full rear of the main building, which brings me to my third point, namely, our request for a setback on the roof between the existing 5th floor and the new penthouse. I refer you to my exhibit showing the rough effect of the current proposal. On balance, retaining the historic roof line of the 4 houses would not be much of a hardship to the owner. If you look at the photo on the lower right of my handout, you'll see that this is the largest penthouse proposed in the neighborhood by far. 141 is here, and the others are marked. Furthermore, a setback would not result in any reduction of actual floor space, given that half the penthouse has no floor and is simply given over to a 22-foot high yoga room. And finally, they could still keep the same size by shifting it forward and reducing the height, which at 12 feet is greater than the doable CNE guideline maximum of 11 feet. In conclusion, we feel that the loss of this historic fabric certainly outweighs any disadvantage to the owner and recommend the proposal in its current form not be approved.
Thank you. Luca Bernasconi?
So I know that you've had a long day so far. I'm not going to use my 3 minutes. I just would like to let you know that I'm fully supporting what has been mentioned by Donald and John, and also what you will hear from my other colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Hayes?
I am also in support of my colleagues' arguments, and I believe that the proposal would destroy the historical integrity of the block and for the 4 townhouses in question designed by the distinguished architects.
Thank you. James H. McGurney? Please state your name for the record.
Sure. It's James McGivney. I'm with Givney, Anthony, and Flaherty, and we represent the Bernascones, who live at 143 West 81st Street. I certainly endorse everything that the previous speakers have said in opposition. I'd only add that there are 7 people here today who have taken time off to testify, but that we also represent those who couldn't make it. About 15 attended the CB7 presentation itself, and a package of letters from non-attendees was also submitted. We will submit some of these letters with copies of our presentation at the end of the meeting, and I have a 1-page statement by me which cites some of the administrative standards for approval of this type of addition. We have letters from people on 82nd Street who will look head-on through the donut at the effect of this proposal, and other owners of the matching 4 townhouse group who couldn't attend the meeting, but are very concerned about the destruction of the historic fabric of this unique group of houses.
Thank you. Arlene Simon?
Good afternoon. Arlene Simon, Landmark West, speaking for our Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. The set of 4 row houses by Eric Hansen Rodas, who designed several campus buildings at Vassar College, the Hutchins School, and Gunnery School in Washington, Connecticut, and Frank Ayers Wright, one of the founders of the Architectural League in New York and a prolific author of architectural books from the 1880s, is a remarkably complete architectural group. While in principle we do not object to the contemporary design, we fear that the proposed monolithic glass rear addition will detract from the existing rhythm of materials and fenestration on the rear of this fine and intact row of buildings. Now, as in the past, our committee urges the Commission to consider the so-called donut of open space formed by the rear yards of Manhattan row house mid-blocks as an important element worthy of preservation. The proposed addition will obliterate all views from the angled windows of the adjoining house number 143 and result in a sliver of open space. It would upset the uniform dogleg extension pattern formed by houses 137 to 143. Finally, it would result in a loss of significant historic features on the rear facade of 141, specifically all the original sills and arched brick headers and the pattern of punch windows that continues on the rear facade of adjacent buildings in a historic ensemble. Rear yard encroachments such as this one contribute to the slow erosion of historic neighborhood development patterns encapsulated in the footprints of row house blocks. If the proposal were to go forward, it would not only permit but encourage neighboring property owners to construct further rear additions despite what it appears applicant's presentation as a 3-story plus basement rear yard addition at 135 West 81st Street, which appears to extend beyond the rear of number 141. There is in fact just another dogleg extension roughly the same size as that on 141, which does not take up the entire lot. So a precedent has not already been set for an extension like this. If all rear yard additions, visible and non-visible, were permitted as a matter of course, the entire block would become a concrete platform, completely eliminating the interior open green space so crucial to the historic integrity of blocks like this. Just as an overscale, this is regarding the rooftop addition, just as overscaled as the rear yard is the rooftop proposal, which should not be
your
approved
time is
as
up.
designed. I'll finish in a minute.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
While the proposed structure is not visible from 81st Street and therefore does not interfere with the integrity of the principal facade.
Thank
you.
Thank you. R. Corey Hay.
Good afternoon. I am Corey Hay, and I am your neighbor on the Upper West Side. More specifically, I live at 143 West 81st Street, which is right next door to the proposed changes. And I believe that I've lived here for 4 decades, and all this time it's remained the same, both in the front and pretty much in the back, at least to my absolute collateral neighbors. And I view this as an historic assault on the neighborhood, and I hope that you will deny this application. And can I cede the rest of my time to Mr. Press, who had some other significant points to make? Is that possible?
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
John Harris, but it really gives a perspective on the bays and the contribution of the bays and the rhythm that they affect in the rear. I've actually simply used the image that the architects had in their package, but they had shown only 3 houses, and I've introduced the 4th. And when you look at the existing, you'll see what the addition of the 4th does in fact, creating the ensemble and the balance that didn't exist when there were 3. And that you can see under the existing, the degree to which the bays lines running downwards develop a certain pattern that creates a form and ensemble. And when you look at the proposed, suddenly none of those lines make sense. And they certainly didn't make sense when you saw 3 houses, and they still don't make sense when you see the 4 houses. And that was simply the additional point I'd wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? All right. Yes, one more speaker, please come forward. Just state your name for the record, please.
My name is Steve Hughes, and I'm the president of the co-op board at 143 West 81st Street, the neighboring property. I'm speaking today to strongly urge the Commission to deny the application before you for a certificate of appropriateness for proposed alterations to 141 West 81st Street. My presentation was prepared with the assistance of the noted architect James Sanders. 141 was built as one of an ensemble of 4 row houses, numbers 137 through 143 West 81st Street. Designed as a group in 1886 by the noted architects Rossiter and Wright, and built by a single owner, Louis Frankenheimer. These buildings form a classic and more or less intact example of what the Commission's designation report for the district in 1990 described as, quote, speculatively built row houses designed in harmonious groups, unified by, quote, consistent height, setback, and overall form. The composition of the four houses takes the form of an ABBC rhythm, in which a strong symmetrical composition of the center two houses was enriched by the slight variations in the end buildings. This compositional strategy and rhythm is evident not only on the front facades of the four houses, but also in the rear facades, where the original massing of the ensemble remains intact to this day. As good architects, Rossiter and Wright made sure to carry through the compositional strategy of the front facades through to the rear, using bay windows and three-story extensions to clearly echo the more heavily decorated street facades. Particularly notable is the way in which the mirror symmetry of the row's central two houses, expressed with adjacent bay windows on the front, becomes a ganged pair of extensions in the rear, with mirrored fenestration, compositionally holding the entire row together. The proposed alterations to 141 would essentially destroy this composition by demolishing the existing rear facade of the building, infilling the entire width of the property, cladding the resulting structure with a glazed contemporary facade that respects neither the massing nor architectural character of the existing facade. This means, of course, the loss of the original 1886 masonry fabric of the rear facade with its shallow, arched Romanesque window openings and other original elements. Equally damaging, the alteration means of the destruction of the rhythm and composition of the houses that Rossiter and Wright had intended. Unlike certain other row houses on the block and around the district, 141 cannot be judged as a single property in isolation, but must be seen as part of its ensemble, providing what the designation report refers to as, quote, a strong coherency. That is, quote, a major element in creating a special sense of place particular to this district of Manhattan's Upper West Side. We would like to add that the proposed rooftop addition will exacerbate the damage done to the Rossiter and Wright composition by pushing back all the way to the rear of the building and rising a full floor higher, 12 feet, than the three other houses of this group. Together, the demolition of the rear facade and extension, the lifting of the roofline by way of the proposed penthouse, and the new glassy minimalist rear facade design will irreparably damage this thoughtful, artful, and historic urban composition. Therefore, we urge you to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers on this item? Any more speakers? All right. Would you like to respond? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing with regards to this ensemble that has been spoken about. Let me see if I can. For some reason, yeah. So this is the condition that is being spoken about and celebrated. And I would like to point out that in its current use, this is completely filled in. The owner has closed her shades here, cannot use these as windows. Also, this part here has already been extended up, so there's no purity necessarily in this anymore. And the proximity of these windows make it actually impossible for the current owner to use it. And I would like to show, for instance, also what the ground floor condition is. And if we speak about unity, I think it's quite clear here that we are extending in far into the donut with a deck, a trellis. The color white is, for instance, also already present in the current setup of homes. And so I think if we talk about unity, I'm questioning if there's still an existing unity at this point.
Okay. I just have a question. You had, in your presentation, you had shown us some rear additions in the area. Is that on this particular block?
It is. And I can go back there. It's right there. So these are...
Yes, where are they on, yes, in the map?
There are
Okay.
these two, or basically 123 and 119, or no, sorry, 121 and 125. And so, or
121 and
117. So these are the two here. I think it is important, though, to note that these are actually visible from the public throughway, and what we are doing is really not visible to anybody, neighbors that you have heard just now. So I think, we really try to be respectful of the existing facade and at the same time bringing light into this narrow townhouse.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can I add something to...
Yes, very quickly.
Yes, indeed. My name is Nabil Isaac, Fine Architects. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your opinion. I just would like to say something basically that, and this is the perfect thing to show here. If I remember well, all these years that I've been working with landmarks, the main composition is, or like the main definition of the rear extensions. In all these definitions, we had to comply with the donut effect. So what I heard today from most of the folks over here is everybody literally spoke about these 4 homes that we're working on ourselves. Everybody spoke about these, about like this block of 4 homes. But we really, I respectfully request from the commission to really stick with the landmarks commission's rules and regulations and stick with the donut effect. What our extension is doing is affecting the entire, I mean, we would like to see it compared to the entire block versus just what it's doing to these 4 homes. Also, I heard one of the neighbors say that, you know, he's been there 4 decades and, you know, like he never saw anything happen. I mean, we just showed you that a lot of things happened in the last decade. And particularly his home over here, which, you know, a deck was added in addition and a trellis. So there was a lot of work done on his property as well. And he's also encroaching beyond what we're proposing. We're just matching this building line that we have in the yard, and we're providing a 31'6" setback, you know, on the backyard. So we're still within compliance in general. And then the white color, we believe this is an appropriate color for the building itself. We didn't introduce the white, but the building next door introduced the white. Actually, as a matter of fact, 143 itself, that's where the white was introduced. Somebody painted that brick white over there. So we thought this would match, this would help, and we picked a cleaner, more gentle color to the eye. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, when we move into discussion, it seems there are a couple of parts to this project. So one is the rooftop addition and its impact on West 81st Street. So that's one issue. The second issue is the rear addition, both in terms of its bulk and its design. And then I would say generally there's a third issue, which is the bulkhead or the rooftop addition that is being viewed from the rear. So I think it makes sense to go through them each individually and get some comments on it, if that makes sense. I think, at least from testimony, it seems that the issues regarding the rooftop addition from West 81st Street isn't really the issue here. That is, I think it's not visible. They've shown that to us. And it's set back significantly to address that issue. Yes, Roberta.
In terms of it looks like what it is, it looks double heighted.
When you get to the other side,
Yeah.
yes, I know. So, right. So we're going to talk about that. Yeah, just from West 81st Street. Okay. So then we come to, and since we're on that topic, we can discuss the double height as well. I think there's been some concerns about the fact that there's an existing portion of the building that's extruded out that does not reveal the historic character, and there's been some recommendations about trying to get that set back. I actually think they could quite easily do that, given that it's a double height space, and the setback would help in defining that the original bulk.
Because the other thing is to not have anything at all. If you have
Right. If you have.
that bump, it should not be just a straight wall going up. There should be some recess, I think.
Right. No, and I.
That's more contextual. You know, if you're going to have a second, have it pushed back.
Okay. All right. In terms of the rear yard bulk, and that is the infill that's taking place within their property and matching up to the fourth, I think it's the 4th floor. Yes, comments and concerns about that. Marjorie, you want to go first?
Yeah, I wanted to just go back to that rooftop addition at the rear. There are times when we see proposals where I feel like the proposal is a unified whole, and it sort of won't do well if you set back that top floor. But even though this is all glass, I actually don't feel that way about this proposal. It doesn't feel that the design isn't so wedded to not having a setback that it can't handle it. That's one reason. There are times when I try to find an argument for why you don't have to align that facade, but in this case, the interesting rhythm, which was spoken about in the testimony, of that rear could be retained, sort of the memory of it, if we did what we usually do, which is to have that top masonry floor still revealed and then the setback. I think it would actually improve the design, frankly. And another, and you know, we of course approve many applications where there's a proposal to remove rear yard L and replace it, essentially lining up the extension so that it runs all the way across the back. So it would be sort of inconsistent of us not to consider it in this case. And there are lots of rear yard incursions here. This is not, not only is this not a clean donut, but there are a lot of buildings that are like tenement buildings on the block that are built almost full to the rear. So this would not be a case, which we've seen in some other places, where it's a pristine, huge rear yard, backyard, and it's hard to imagine being the first. So this is not the first. But one of the things that I did want to say about the addition, and again, we've approved lots and lots of glass additions, is I sort of think that the architect is missing an opportunity here, which we've seen a few examples that were incredibly cool, of the architect taking advantage of the L and then doing an infill that sort of pays deference to the L, but improves on somehow or other the quality of it. And what's so funny is when they were doing this diagram to just show us what, I looked at that and I thought, wow, that is a cool project. And so what I think is sort of sad is they could have done something with that, and instead they went the same old like everybody's doing, which is the glass box. And not to say that I couldn't approve it, it's appropriate, I'm just sorry they didn't pursue this parti.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Yes.
I'll ratify Marjorie's comments. I think I know the work of the applicants. They're fantastically creative, really cutting edge guys, and I guess I'm kind of bummed that this is not more interestingly engaged with the conditions that it found, but that doesn't mean that it's not in the broadest strokes appropriate by our standards. I think that the top floor front and rear, I see no reason why you need 12 feet floor to floor for a rec room. And it's true that it's not visible, but again, we try to keep things modest and reasonable, and by the lights of the architect of record, looking at the other applications on this block that have been approved, I don't believe that any of them have had that lofty height, nor have any of them come to the rear facade. And certainly not for a double height space. I really see no reason, given the program, why one should not try to make the double height a deck and have it to be, our goal has always been to try to preserve the sense of the donut at the top floor, so that even though there are multiple changes and accretions over time, that top band reads. And that's not only the parapet height and position relative to the adjacent buildings, but the material. And I think that the architect, very skilled people, can come up with a solution that would either involve retaining the masonry or replacing the masonry with new masonry that engaged in that conversation of knitting the building with the block on some levels and creating difference on others. So I think that that's a challenge that can certainly be met by the applicant, but should be attempted. I just wanted to say, it's another example of a number that we've seen where backs have turned into fronts. And that too is, like Marjorie was saying, a lost opportunity. Here you have, yes, great, a beautiful double height living dining room, but then you have 2 bedrooms where you can't walk around in your PJs without everybody knowing about it unless you pull down the shades. And it seems like a missed opportunity to try to kind of have, and I'm surprised that there wasn't more commentary from the community. We've heard before many times where people say, my God, it's going to be like a lantern in our backyards. Right. Again, that's not kind of our purview, but I think it shows a generic quality to the rear yard that's too bad.
Okay. Other comments? Yes,
Sure.
Ms. Brett?
I don't disagree with what I've been hearing. I would support the rooftop addition, even in the height, since it is not visible from the public way, if it's pushed back, 2 or 3 feet pushed back. I think we do that a lot. I'm not completely sold on the need to keep that top floor, then existing top floor, in a brick and punched opening. In my judgment, it might well be glass. Just let's hear others' points of view about this. And then we've so often, so many historic districts, Upper West Side, Upper East Side, all over Brooklyn, and for years we've been allowing a fair amount of freedom by homeowners to adapt and change the rear. I think it has to be reemphasized that this applicant is not going beyond the existing line that already has been established. I think that's an important precedent that they have accepted and lived with. They are filling in a piece and redesigning the entire back. I also have to say, just for what it's worth, what Marjorie said, that's a pretty cool facade, actually. Might be fun to do it. But that's not what's been proposed, at least for now. And I'm thinking maybe we're going to see this come back. I'm not sure where you're thinking this is going, but it seems like it might be going there. But if it doesn't, if you don't adopt something like that, which is a pretty interesting idea, showing the evolution in fact, I would think that there's just, the expanse of glass here is it's just too wide. The proportions, the whole thing seems a little generic, out of context. So if it's going to continue to be all glass, then I think it needs to have side walls that are brick. I'm not convinced of the color of the brick, but I'm not completely unconvinced about it either. It's just some comments to
Well,
work
actually,
on.
just sort of building on what you said, and what some of the others have said right now, just in terms of the bulk, and having the rear yard addition, I think, again, as said before, that this is a fairly variegated kind of donut, and from that perspective, I think this enlargement is not really going to disturb what's already there, and at least it's a lack of pattern, so to speak. I think just in terms of the design itself, actually when I looked at those, and maybe it's a more conservative approach, I said those are actually quite nice because they retain some of the brick and at the same time have larger openings which allow for light. So I'm not completely, I don't think I'm completely rejecting the idea of having a more glass and this sort of white color over there, but I think then they should explore maybe some of the things that have been said today, which is that if they want to go with that, maybe they should bring some more masonry into it. Keep the color, don't keep the color, and if we really want them to explore, I wonder if by doing that, it may address some of the concerns that were raised, which is here you have this brick, and now you could potentially have this glass piece, and that's kind of an interesting sort of result that you get at the back. Or is it a way that you somehow draw from what you have right now, which is more masonry in a particular color, but you have a more uniform, facade at the back. So. In terms of what the applicant should explore, are there other comments, Michael, or yes, Diana, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just agree with some of the other comments here, I think, but we have permitted full width additions, and we have permitted, mostly glass additions.
Okay.
We have tried very hard to preserve the fenestration of the upper floors and the actual final upper floor, and it's not clear in this donut whether that's really been compromised a lot, because we didn't see a lot of pictures except for ones where it was preserved.
Right,
so I'd like to see that it's not. It appears to be atypical right now. The fact that the last floor is lost, and I think the rooftop addition is okay, and as with Fred suggesting, it should be set back a little, but it's fine, I think otherwise. So
Yeah.
I think we could go along with it. I don't know about the color ultimately yet until we see what comes up, but I would like to see that last floor preserved unless it's clear that it's been compromised all over the place, and it's not clear in this block that it has been. That is something we do try to hang on to.
Okay, yes, Chris.
I would agree, and I think generally our norm is to preserve the fenestration of the upper floor. I would like to also see the rooftop reduced as well.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, so it seems we should ask them to come back to us and explore some of the things that we're looking at. So some of the things, I know that everybody may not feel strongly about this, but it's worth exploring it for those, even if they accept the height right now, I think we should look at reducing the height overall of the bulkhead. I think doing the setback is something that you can easily do, and I think it'll go a long way. The issue of the material at the back and how you want to address some of the concerns. I think if you want to go with this glass facade and this, this white color, I think it would be helpful, as Diana suggested, to get a better sense of the other things that are happening in this donut, because right now we've seen one example, and this is somewhat different from that. So I think that'll help us understand at least the range of textures that you have at the rear yard, which you don't have right now. Alternatively, you could take a more conservative approach and really try and incorporate the existing building and follow the lead that we've done before, which is of trying to retain the masonry and then incorporate the new portion, but not in the way that you've done it right now. Does that make sense? Okay. Are there other concerns or comments? All right. Good. So we will close the hearing. All in favor? Sorry. All in favor? Anybody opposed? All right. So we'll bring them back.
When's the day?
Right.